I always love to ask this question because I feel like just juiciness comes from it, but like, and it's
Oh,
going to be the first thing that comes to your mind. So if
for
like
sure.
yeah, if you were to kind of distill your life's journey into like one piece of advice, not one word, but one piece of advice, like what would that be?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is also something that we already spoke about, but I just want to highlight it even more.
Mm,
And it would be like start to listen to the whispers of your body before it has to
mm,
scream. That would be like mainly my advice. If you start to do that, that's fully reclaiming your power to me.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface.
Welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface. And today I am so truly, genuinely grateful to be in conversation with you here, Gianine. And she is joining me, and we're on opposite sides of the world. And I just love that so much about the internet. I think that's just a beautiful thing, especially like social media and being able to connect with people just all around the world. And so I'm just so excited to connect with you. So thank you for being here, first and foremost.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I absolutely agree. I've had the pleasure to meet so many people just by the internet. I think it is amazing that someone just discovered it and like created it for us. I could never, but I'm here for it all.
Yeah. Thank you to the creator of the internet. I have no idea who that is, but thank you.
Exactly, exactly.
I'd love for you to take up space and introduce more about who you are, and before we dive into this beautiful conversation around trauma and our bodies and really coming back to that space and reclaiming our power. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about who you are and things that you do for the world.
Thank you so much. So my name is Janine, and I have a company that is called Movement Medicine. And Movement Medicine really stands for reclaiming your power. So I help tons of people actually doing just that, reclaiming their power. And the most important thing to start and the most important point to start is reclaiming your past. And that is often something that we actually don't want to reclaim, because
Yeah.
the past is in the past and we're living in the present and we're working towards the future. But the past is like so important. So I help people and guide people through those steps actually, so they can be their full self and just unapologetically as well.
I resonate and relate so much to that. When I hear those words, I'm like, yes, like that is truly the place to begin, or where it all begins is our past and our upbringing and the things that we have experienced. And I think one of the things that's important for us to start with is, as we dive into trauma, is how we are mindful, I guess, at least from my lens, I'm mindful of saying trauma, because I look at other experience and I often say to myself, well, I haven't experienced something such as that. That is seen as much more traumatic. So I'd love for you to kind of share about like why it is that we do that, but also the power in being able to, I guess, understand that. Like, is that part of it? Should we claim the experience as trauma? What's your take on that? What's your perspective on that?
I absolutely love that question. And I think the first thing that I want to tap into is that all trauma is let an emotional experience that we couldn't fully process at the time, right? That is actually
Mm,
all what it is. But the second thing I want to tap into is that trauma nowadays is also a word that is just thrown out a lot on social media. You hear everybody talk about trauma and like the importance of trauma and, well, everything connected to it. So I think that is also why people kind of feel it like, mm, it doesn't feel that
Yeah.
nice to call it that way, right? And I think the third thing is that you never have to make your trauma less important, but you also don't really have to label it. But like
Mm,
the line in between is don't make it less important. And I think I really discovered this in my own life, actually. So I went through a really big trauma, like one of the big five. So I was in a plane, and the plane was on fire. So that is like one of those things that is like really
oh my
big and like, yeah, I know. But that is one of those things that's like really big and people really call that a trauma, right? But
For sure.
then I also have some little things that actually also impacted me and my body as the same as the plane thing. So that really made
Mm,
me realize that one is not more important than the other. Like we as humans label it as more important, but no one can do that for you.
that's so true. And I think that piece around the labeling is also, um, yeah, I don't know what the word is or what specifically, but I feel like lately there's just been this thing around labels for me where I'm just so mindful of what are the labels that we're putting on ourselves,
Hmm.
like and the attachment that we have around these labels. And I feel like that can happen when we identify as something, right? Like for example, you identify as let's say for example, you identify as an entrepreneur, right? Like that's a label that you're putting on yourself. And what are you making that mean? Because
Hmm.
then there's this piece around, okay, well, what are you without that? And that's this, just this angle in this piece. But I feel like that also looks like we can take that approach as well when it comes to tr- trauma, in the sense of like I've experienced a trauma, and it's when we, I guess, we're giving our power away to that experience and saying, well, I am this way because of this. And how do you like relate to that in your like work and experience?
I think that is something that is so, 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 so important that you tapped into because, like, I always tell my clients as well, like, you aren't traumatized. Like that is something that I never wish for them to say that you're traumatized or that you're damaged or like all those things, right? You went through something traumatic, but that's different than being traumatized.
Yeah.
Because you keeping affirming that is not helping your process, is not reclaiming it at all. And I think that to me is something really, really, really important. And I think as soon as you're able to just call it what it is, and it doesn't have to be trauma, you don't have to label it as trauma, right?
Mm,
It can be a
yeah.
very bad experience or like experience that wasn't nice or like, I don't know, that did something with your body. But as soon as you are able to like see it what it is,
Mhm.
that's where the gold is. Because the
Yeah.
thing is, what also always happens is that well, you say, yeah, I went for this and blah, 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 blah. And then you say, but yeah, it is what it is. There's nothing that I can do about it. And that is the biggest mistake you can make. And I'm guilty as well. Like, I also did that. Like,
Totally.
100%. It is what it is. It happened, right?
Yeah.
But that is
Yep.
just not you allowing it to be there as well. And that doesn't help
Hmm.
your process at all.
Yeah. In those experiences, in those moments where I guess where did that shift happen where it was kind of like, well, it is what it is, to I guess in a way the missing part in that is kind of like the actual processing of it and being able to just not necessarily integrate, but process is the best word that I can think of. Like what created that shift for you?
I think for me it is that I had so much built up trauma and built up emotion that at a certain point my body just completely shut down. So I got
Mm.
very sick. I was very dizzy. I lost all my curls. I had numbness in my arms and legs and like all these things, right? And originally they thought it was MS. And then I really had to really go deep within myself and forgive myself for not
Mm,
accepting all those things that happened. That was the
yeah.
most important thing, just to allow it to be there. And it was hard, and it can be very hard. But
Yeah.
once you do it, you open something up, and
Yeah.
that really is the power that you have as a human being.
I always think it's very interesting to hear how people go on that journey of being able to forgive themselves. Because I feel like, I don't know what's more, I don't know what's harder than the other. You know, there's the aspect of forgiving ourselves, and then there's the aspect of like forgiving other people. And to be honest, like I can't even speak to which one's more difficult because at times I've been able to forgive other people a lot easier but in other ways, I've been able to forgive myself a lot easier. So it's like this interesting dance with it. But what did that look like for you to like actually come to a place where you could forgive yourself?
For me, that was mainly I really had to forgive my body first and foremost. Because
Mm,
one thing that I didn't tell you in the introduction is that I'm also a professional dancer. So I dance in theaters and stuff and like contemporary dance. And I wasn't able to do that for months.
wow.
And I was so angry at my body because I couldn't even walk my dog, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I was so dizzy, I couldn't do a lot. And I was so, so angry at my body and at myself and like letting all those things happen and allowing them to happen. And then at a
Hmm.
certain point, I was like, but if I am this jerk to myself, how can I expect other people to be nice, right? And it was not
Hmm.
about other people, but it was more about, okay, but how can I actually become my own best friend? Because if
Mm,
it was someone else, I would say, it's fine. It is
yeah.
okay. But because it was me talking to me, it was like way harder to do that. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, what would you tell your clients right now? And I was like, time, it's time to just forgive. It's time to just be angry for a while and then forgive. That was it really for
Yeah.
me.
And that, I think that acknowledgement too of just allowing yourself to feel the emotions that come up, you know? I think sometimes there's just, we get to a place where it's like, oh, I can't be angry. I can't be this, I can't be that. And we just don't allow ourselves to feel the truth of what that is because at the end of the day, we are human beings. So allow yourself to be a little frustrated because there's going to be moments that of frustration. And I can only imagine as someone who literally uses their body like all the time as a dancer and then not being able to do that. That is frustrating. That is so frustrating. And allow it to be frustrating. Like allow yourself to experience that. I think there's a difference of playing out the victim aspect of it. Like I feel like there's a line where it crosses over to okay, now we've kind of placed ourselves in this like victim mentality, but I feel like there's this threshold almost where you're not a victim because you're feeling frustrated or you're upset or you're angry or you're mad. It doesn't automatically mean that you're a victim.
Exactly. And that's why I always tell my clients as well that there are no negative, there are no bad and good emotions, right? That to me that
Yep.
doesn't exist. Like I
Yeah.
always say there are positive and negative, and I always make this like example, like if you have a battery, there's a plus side and a minus side. Otherwise, the battery wouldn't work. It just
Yep.
wouldn't. We as humans are the same. We need both of them. We just need both
Mm,
of them. But somehow we picked up along the way that it is bad to be angry or it's bad to cry or it's bad to be sad for too long. Like we all labeled it again. And that makes it actually way harder. So if you see
yep.
it as a battery, you also have the power to flip the battery. And I
Uh,
think that is something that is just once you really realize and understand that, it makes
mhm.
life way more fun as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that attachment that we have to things. It's what creates a lot of our suffering in ways, right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of the our own suffering that we create on ourselves. Like I know it's very cliche, but you know that quote around how suffering is optional. It's like I just can't it's there's so much truth in that because we do create our own suffering by the what we cling to and the attachments that we hold to certain things, identities, experiences, all of it. All of it. But I think one thing that I'd really love to dive into, and I'm curious. So you being a dancer, you of course like you're using your body. You're a dancer. So do you feel like you've always been able to have this like body connection? Because I feel like that is something where whenever a coach has asked me, where do you feel this in your body? I'm like, I don't know what you're asking me right now. Like there's a disconnect here. Do you feel like you've always had that?
I think yes and no. So as a dancer, you're focused on your body, but you're also really focused on the outcome, right? The thing that you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, I don't know, have a choreography from 3 times 8 or something, and you're focused
Yeah.
on that. But you also pick up to things, or I pick up to things that, oh yeah, my knee is a bit stiff, and I think if I was the dancer, I wouldn't feel it, right?
Mm,
But I think that is also the reason why I always incorporate movement into everything that I do with all my clients. And the thing is, you don't have to be a dancer because it's not dancing, it is
right.
moving. And that's the difference because we can all move, we can all dance as well, but the word dance is a bit more scary because then there's an outcome, right? But moving your body is just moving your body, and that on itself is medicine.
Oh, I got chills from that. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. So tell me more about because one thing that I actually talked about with another guest that I had on the show, we talked a little bit about how the body keeps score. And I know that's something that you also talk about too. And yeah, I'm curious how someone can be able to begin to identify that. Like where are we feel like where is that trauma being stored? Is that even something that we can figure out on our own or be able to like unpack that on our own?
Yeah. The interesting thing about emotions is that since trauma is always emotions, is that emotions just build up. So I I always gave the weirdest examples. Like I always do it. I come up with them on the spot and I just have an example. They are always very weird. But like I
I
was
love it.
talking to someone the other week and I just had the perfect example and I remembered them. And I said, like, if you brush your teeth, like we
Hmm.
learn to do that from a very young age, right?
Yeah.
If you stop doing that, your teeth get dirty, right?
Yeah.
If you stop doing that for a couple of weeks, there's a great chance that you get some toothache as well.
Yeah.
That's the
Mm.
same with the body. So if you stop moving or stop like taking care of yourself and you just build up every emotion on every emotion and every emotion, your body actually has to communicate with you. And the more you ignore that, the harder the body has to scream to you. And you want to listen to the whispers instead of to the scream, right? So you want to
Yeah.
be there early as you can. So it can be a
Mm.
headache, it can be stiffness, it can just be, I don't know, that your elbow is doing funky. It can be literally anything. But the
Yeah.
thing is, as soon as you get that relationship with your body and you really start to listen to the whispers, then all the physical pain is not needed. The
Yeah.
paracetamol, the ibuprofen, you don't need that. You can if it's
Yeah.
really hurting, but yeah.
Of course. I remember seeing this documentary called Heal. I don't know if you've
Oh
ever
yeah.
seen it. Oh my God. That documentary just I I I still remember it. It was just so fascinating to me. Because I feel like in a way, they're in a sense, I've always just been able to like go through that experience of being able to release those emotions. And but I just noticed it was more this awareness around, you know, just to be honest, seeing my mother and seeing like all the just ailments, physical and whatnot, because of stress, and because of all those emotions. And it's so difficult to witness the people that you love so dearly hold on to emotions, to experiences. And sometimes all you want to do is just like shake them and then like try and release it for them. But like we're all, unfortunately, we have to do that on our own, And it's
Mhm.
like, why wait for the experience where your body's screaming at you, and feel like part of the disconnect is that we don't create enough space to listen to ourselves. We're
Yeah.
so on the go. We're so this, listen to other people, outsource how we feel, outsource solutions. And yet sometimes it's the answer is in silence, in creating space to connect with yourself. And then you'll actually be able to feel what's happening in your body. Like, where is something, where does something just not feel right? And you're going to be guided to do certain things. You're going to be guided to certain experiences. This happened very recently with me where I learned about someone who does live blood analysis. And I was, for some reason, so drawn. I've been having just an interesting experience with my cycle, and I'm just knowing that there's something more. There's something more. There's not necessarily physical pain, but I just know that something isn't right. And so, of course, I'm drawn to this experience. And then that experience leads one thing to another, and possibly like solutions and answers. And it's like your body will know. You're going to be guided. It's the listening part that there's the disconnect.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I think what is also very interesting is that people also don't sit in silence anymore. So the TV is on, although you're not really watching TV, but the noise is on in the background. Same with music. Like we're always like trying to distract because just being in silence and just, I don't know, sitting on your couch and just sitting on your couch is like somehow very scary. Like
Mm-hmm.
somehow it is something that, oh yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. Like we don't do that.
Yeah, it's
And
foreign.
like it was a weird realization because I was like at my mom's place and she's an artist, and if she's like working on her art, the TV is sometimes on or the music is on and she's working, right? And I was like, why do you think that actually is? Like because
Yeah.
you're not watching it.
Right.
So like what would actually happen with your art if you're just in silence and just listen to yourself and like your own creative energy? And I thought that it's so interesting to see that as well.
And sometimes the TV's on and we're scrolling on our phones.
Yeah, same.
And it's just so interesting to pay attention and to notice what we're doing and how we're avoiding certain
Hmm.
things. And I think that's ultimately what it is. It's avoidance of being in silence.
Yeah.
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 And I'm curious too, like for you in explaining, I really loved how, just movement and what's been that impact for you in your life? Like bringing movement into everything that you do. How has that played such a like big role for you?
I think it played the biggest role.
Yeah.
It really did. And not just like in terms of dance, but also just in terms of having a walk when I'm down, right? Like those little things, we all do it. But if you start to do it like consciously, okay, I feel in a funk and my house feels funky as well. Just have a walk. Like it's a good thing that I have a dog, so I have walks like 4 times a day as well.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. But like those are just little things everyone can do. And for me, especially when I was feeling that sick, like for me, it was really about using movement to let go of all the anger and frustration. That's
Mm,
really like because of me doing that actively and because of me dancing it out, literally all the emotions, I was able to be as strong as I am now. Like my health is amazing. All my tests are amazing. Like everything is flowing again. I feel good. I feel strong. I can do anything.
yeah.
But if I didn't combine movement with the emotional work, I think I would still sit on the couch and not do a lot.
Mm. How did you make that connection that there was like when you started getting sick? How did you make that connection that it was from the emotional trauma and experiences?
Well, as weird as it might sound, it took like 8 months.
Mm,
So it took like 8 months of being sick and doing everything that Western medicine offers. So I did like
right.
blood checks. I did like all the things. Like, and then at a certain point, I had to go to a neurologist because they were like, okay, I think something serious is going on here, and they did an MRI scan of my brain, and then they did another scan, and like more scans came, and then well, you're 8 months further, and from the beginning. every doctor asked me, did you go through a stressful period? And I was like, well, there was this little thing that happened. There you go, making it smaller. So there was this little thing that happened, but that's not it. That's what I said to everyone, right? Every
Mm-hmm.
practitioner. And they were like, okay, let's do another test, right? And then at a certain point, I was like, I think it has to do with that little thing that happened. I think that impacted me more. And I think that triggered something in me, right? It was just the bucket was full. So the glass was just too full for my body to handle it. And what I discovered was because I had all the frustration towards my body, but I
Mm-hmm.
also still had a lot of anger and frustration because of the whole situation.
Right.
And at that time, I didn't feel safe enough to show that anger. So I
Mm,
made, like, I went into a complete freeze, right? So my body just froze and I was just like, just give it to me. It's fine. Just give everything to me. And
right.
because I wasn't able to express that in that moment, my body was just like, Janine, whenever you're ready, we're gonna let it out. And that is something that really helped with moving my body.
Isn't it interesting how when you're prompted with the question, right, all the doctors that you went to, and the immediate answer that you thought of was the truth,
Yeah.
but we obviously human and ego came in and was like, oh, but
Yeah.
it's not that, right? And we diminished it. But the piece that I want to highlight is the immediate answer that came through. And I think if we really sit with how many times we've been asked a question and we immediately know what's wrong.
Hmm.
We immediately know what we want to say and we don't say the thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes that looks like in relationships. And I don't just mean romantic relationships. I just mean relationships in general with your siblings, with your parents, all of that. When there is some sort of just discord or whatever that looks like, and you want to say the thing that you want to say and it doesn't come out.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that
It's
our
so interesting.
body, not even our, like, we just know what wants to be said. We know what wants to be expressed. We just allow ego to kind of like take control in the mind. It's like, oh, don't say that thing.
Yeah.
Because if I say this, then how is it going to impact this person? Right? Like it's the truth that we don't want to come out.
Yeah.
And that safety piece, I would love to hear you talk more about, like you said, that you didn't feel safe to express the anger. Like, how did you manage to come to a place where you felt safe? Because I think I realized more and more that safety is such a big piece in us being able to express ourselves, release, allow ourselves to go on that healing journey, the processing. Safety is really key because it's safe with yourself. It's safety with if you have someone that's guiding you, right? Like if you have a coach or whatever that looks like walking you through, there has to be some level of trust and safety in order for you to be your full truth. So,
Hmm.
what was that process for you? Like, how did you come back to that safety?
I think what is also really important to mention, and especially when it is connected to trauma, is that again, all trauma is that a bunch of emotions that you didn't feel safe to express at that time, right? So when it
Mm,
comes to trauma, there's never safety there. So the
right.
hard part of the journey is to find that safety within first self, and then you can start to work with it, right? And I think safety is just such a big thing
Yeah.
because safety is something different for everyone. And for me,
Right.
actually, my safety was dance. But I didn't
Mm,
realize that because I was so dizzy, so I didn't dance. But actually, that was also the thing that I needed to do because I've been dancing since I
mm,
was 3 years old. So that is really my safe haven.
yeah.
And I actually went to an improvisation event. And the guy who was hosting it, I told him like I'm not gonna do a lot because he knew of my situation. I said I'm not gonna do that much or like be that active because I'm still kind of dizzy. He was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's cool, just do what you need to do. And then it was my turn because you go one by one, and the music went on, And I just transformed into a full beast and I was dancing super fast and all the anger and like just everything from all those months came out. And I was dizzy during the improvisation, of course, but
Yeah.
afterwards I just felt like what just happened.
Mm.
Like I had no idea what just happened, but I knew that I was like onto something then. I knew that that was my safe haven. And I knew that doesn't matter what happens in my life, I can always give that safety to myself. And it doesn't have to be in the form of dance, but I can always give that to myself. And so can you, and so can someone else as well.
Wow. I got full body chills when, like you said, you transformed and like you just released everything in that moment. Like, what a powerful experience to experience. But I also, what you just said around that we can give the safety to ourselves. I'm like, how do we do that? How do we give that safety? Like, for someone who doesn't know what makes them feel safe, how do we find that?
I think for me, the biggest part connected to safety is really forgiveness. Because there's a reason
Mm,
that you don't feel safe, actually, right? It can
yeah.
be due to a situation, it can be because of self image, but then self image is also kind of related to situation, maybe in your childhood or like, I don't know. But like,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you start to forgive, you're also freeing yourself from that experience. And by freeing yourself from that experience, you're like, okay, it is good. I'm safe. Like, there's nothing going on now. And just by
Mm-hmm.
telling yourself that you're safe, that does
Mm,
a lot. Because,
yeah.
like, the thing that I told myself every single day, multiple times a day as well, when I got dizzy and I didn't want to black out, I always told Janine, you're safe. It's okay. You're safe. There's nothing going on. So I didn't
Yeah.
faint because I told my body literally, it's okay. You got this. Like, you're not gonna fall. There's no way you're
Yeah.
gonna fall. You're just safe. Like, you have legs. So I
Yeah.
think that also really helps. It depends on
Mm,
the situation, of course, but like you can give it.
yeah, of course. And I think like what I don't know, I'm kind of trying to like reflect in my own experiences and my own journey. And like one of the biggest things that I really had to work through and where I didn't feel safe was literally using my voice. Like I remember being in um this specific relationship and we were having some sort of argument. And I remember us sitting in a car. I think it was like my car at the time. And he's like communicating. And all I could do was like respond back in my mind. Literally nothing was coming out. I was silent. Nothing was coming out. And I remember that experience just so viscerally of why do I feel like I can't use my voice? And it just never felt safe to speak. Like, you know what I mean? It's not just like speak up for yourself. I just mean in like genuinely just speaking. You know, it was really a struggle for me. And now just having gone through different experiences, and I think for me, one of the biggest ones was forgiving my dad. That's a big part of my journey and my story, but forgiving him and being so raw in my emotions with him and really allowing him to see that allowed me to like completely release that from my body. And it was like ever since that moment, I think I'm putting the pieces together now in this moment, funny enough. But like after that experience, I'm like, so many things in my life changed where I was never one to do public speaking, like at all. Like people thought, like, who are you? You're nuts. And I remember actually, after I published my book, I went back to my high school and met with my English teacher. And he goes, like, how did you, the shyest one in the room, come to a place where you're writing a book and speaking? And it's so like everything changed after that moment with my dad, where I finally got to that place where I allowed myself to feel everything that I was feeling, allowing it to be okay, allowing like the rawness of it. I might have now going back, like I definitely probably could have said things differently, but like the rawness of it almost just had to come out. Like, I want to say like the ugliness of it too, right? Like sometimes we just communicate from this place that it's just, we're not even thinking about what we're saying and it just comes out. But it almost like needed to come out the way that it needed to come out so that I could be so raw with it and real with it. And I don't even remember the conversation my dad and I had after that because I actually wrote everything down. It was all in the letter and I just gave it to him. And I don't even remember after having a conversation with him, no idea what we said. All I knew was just, I'm ready to move forward. If you're ready to move forward too, like that's it. We're moving forward. And the past is literally the past. I'm not going to hold XYZ against you. I never bring it up. It's like, I don't bring it up anymore. I don't fault him for any of those things. And truly going through that experience allowed me to be in a place like, someone who literally was afraid to use their voice to, for example, having a podcast show, right? Like doing this, having conversations with people. It's like this example. I think I'm just putting pieces together right now in this moment of just the act of the movement, right? It wasn't necessarily, it was some form of movement, maybe not in the traditional sense where we think of moving our body, but there's moving, I guess the energy really, right?
That is exactly what it is. In the end, it's about moving energy, and it doesn't have to do with your body at all. And it's funny that you say this because I was the exact same. Like I would hate speaking in a class. I would never raise my hand and ask a question. That was
Oh my
like
God.
I'd rather just not get it and like find it out myself and Google it and everything and learn everything that way than actually raise my hand and ask the question.
Yeah, because
Like,
what if I sound dumb? What if like all of this, or like even to answer a question, what if the answer is wrong? And the worst is when you're called upon and you never raise your hand. I'm like,
why?
what about everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was the exact same. And then for me, I don't have a specific moment. And I think sometimes we don't even have to have a specific moment. Like sometimes something is just cleared out of your body and it has like a bunch of different things like connected to it and it's fine. And that's kind of what happened to me. And then like I was like, okay, so now I have an online business and I talk to like women and I also have a podcast and I give meditations and I do public speaking. And I was like, Gianine from like 10 years ago would like laugh at this possibility. Like I would never ever believe it.
Yep.
Never.
Yeah. But I think it's when you just allow yourself to like to feel like to allow yourself to like experience what you experienced, move through what you experienced, and like I don't want to say heal, but I feel like that's just the word that people understand the most is like you heal from it. But I think it's just like, I don't know what it is. I feel like there's something better that can describe this process and this journey. But you just come to a place, maybe it's that piece that you were saying at the very beginning of like you reclaim your past, right? Like your perspective on it has just shifted. And I think when you can allow yourself to really like move all of that and release all of that, that stuckness, like the fear that gets stuck inside of us no longer is running the show. And then it ends up being that, call it whatever you want to call it, but for some reason right now I want to call it like soul. Like your soul then becomes the driver's seat. And then your soul is like, you are meant to do this, right? Like you're meant to speak or to share. It doesn't have to be on a stage. It could be just simply engaging in conversations like this on a podcast, right? Like there's so many ways that we can take up space. But that reclaiming of our power is such a big puzzle in all of it. It's when you can do all of that, then it's like this freedom almost, right? The freedom to, I don't have to be afraid of who I am. I don't have to be afraid of what I experienced. I don't have to be afraid of any of it. I can use it and I can embrace it and I get to be me. I get to be my fully authentic self. And I think when you end up in that space and you're there, like that's true reclaiming of your power.
Exactly. And I think it also has a lot to do with like being neutral about certain things. So for myself,
Hmm.
I know that if I think about like a past experience and I can be neutral about it, that I've done the allowing, accepting, like the processing, like I've done that, right? So it's not being numb about it. So it's not feeling nothing at all.
Yes.
It's being neutral. And that is like a very fine line. But like, if you're able to be neutral about something, that
Mm,
means that you were also able to reclaim it.
I
That's for
love.
me.
Oh my God, no, it feels so true. It's almost like this like scale that you can use, like a little gauge for yourself. It's so true when there is something that's still triggering you about an experience. Again, it's just like this little notification in you that there's just something else that's there that needs to be addressed and looked at and not ignored. That I think is the biggest thing is, we talked about, right? You ignore the whispers and then your body's screaming at you, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what being triggered is when you're feeling something about an emotion. I think that is, yeah, like it's the slowing down when that happens can be very cathartic in a way where, for example, you're in a conversation and you find yourself just like being very activated and triggered and you're kind of almost lashing out. Imagine what it would look like to kind of hold yourself and like slow down in that moment and almost just kind of like, okay, interesting, what's happening right now in this moment and become this observer of the situation of you. That's where we can build this awareness of what's happening. But it's like we can't even, not we can't, but that's the part that's almost like missing is like the awareness around it, right? Like awareness around where are we being triggered? What's triggering us? And just getting curious on what is that and exploring that. Okay, where does this come from? Where did I create this belief? Where did this come from?
Yeah, I love that. Like my old mentor always said, your triggers are your teachers. And that was when I started to do this work. And I was like, I'm so happy that she told me that like right in the beginning. Because now when I'm
Mm,
get triggered, I'm like, okay, cool. So what's going on here? Like, just have a heart to heart with yourself. Like, what's going on? Like,
yeah,
why am I triggered? Like, what is happening? And then you can
yeah.
laugh about it. And I think something that is really important to me is that your journey gets to be fun. Your healing journey gets to be fun as well. It doesn't have to be heavy and like the dark night of the soul and like all these things, right? You can also have fun with it. You can laugh with yourself. Like, it's okay. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take your journey too seriously.
Oh
It
my
doesn't
God,
help.
amen, girl. Oh my gosh. You have known the amount of times over the last like 2 years that I have said those exact words about healing, right? And this is I feel like this, I don't want to say misconception, but I feel like we always look at it as in order for me to like be on this other side, right? In order for me to get to this place, we say that, okay, I need to do this healing work. I need to do this. I need to let go of this. And we make it seem like something has to crumble.
Yeah.
Something has to just completely fall apart. And I feel like there's moments of that. There's going to be moments of that, but it doesn't always have to be where you are in your bed crying, bawling your eyes out, having this complete breakdown. I just I don't resonate with that. I feel like through the playfulness, it can also be such a beautiful teacher. All of it,
Exactly. And it
you
doesn't
know?
mean like rainbows and sunshine and always like
No.
no one is here for that. It's not about bypassing. It's just
No.
like be playful, be a child, just let it out. It's fine. Like you
Hmm.
don't want your journey to be like I think nowadays it's like promoted this way and it almost feels like a part-time job. Like it isn't supposed to feel like that. You don't
Yeah.
like your healing journey doesn't have to be a part-time job. You don't have to try every single thing. You don't have to be healed. I
Yeah.
think to me that is really, really, really important.
I agree. I think there's so many incredible like pieces that we were able to like just talk about and dive into, and I'm so grateful for this conversation and where we were guided to go with it too, before we kind of end and wrap up, I always love to ask this question because I feel like just juiciness comes from it. But like, and it's
Oh,
gonna be the first thing that comes to your mind. So if
for
like you,
sure.
yeah, if you were to kind of distill your life's journey into like one piece of advice, not one word, but one piece of advice, like what would that be?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is also something that we already spoke about, but I just want to highlight it even more. And it would be like start to listen to the whispers of your body before it has to scream. That would be like mainly my advice. If you start to do that, that's fully reclaiming your power to me.
Mm, yeah, I love that so much. And creating the space so that you can hear the whispers. I feel like that's one
Exactly.
thing that I've just
Yeah.
been all about lately is just creating that space. For me, I'm such a morning person, so like my time in the morning has been so sacred in the sense of just like creating that space for myself. It's truly where I've been able to, in a way, like reclaim that power that I know that I innately have, right? Sometimes we give our power away to, well, social media unfortunately is like a big factor. It's like, you just there's pros and cons to it all, but right, like
Yeah.
we give our power away to seeing like other people that it might be in the space that you're in, and you're kind of like, oh, enough, or like whatever that story it is that comes through. And
Yeah.
I just like I advocate now for creating that intentional time, whatever that looks like. We're not talking like, or I'm not saying like 2 hours. You need 2 hours in order to have this like fully ritual that's gonna be the thing that makes you feel. No, you could, as long as you're so intentional with your time, 5 minutes. I will even
Yeah.
say 2 minutes of simply silence or just something that really connects you. I literally this morning was like just drumming for 2 minutes. And I was just like, I feel so good right now. And that's all it takes, 2 minutes. But it's
Yeah.
so intentional, right? Like it's so intentional. And that's where I don't often kind of like add to it, but I wanted to say, like you gotta create that intentional space for yourself,
Yeah. I
you
agree.
know?
I
We
I,
give our
I
so
agree.
much our power away to other people, and reclaiming it is we have the answers, we have the wisdom, we have the compass. No one's gonna know you're healing, like what you need, more than yourself.
Yeah.
No one. When you ask yourself, like, what do I need today? Not even your mother's gonna be able to tell you what you need for yourself. Like,
Exactly.
you know what's best for you. And I think we just give our power away too much. What do I need? Ask yourself that question. Hold up the mirror and ask
Yeah.
yourself that question.
And the thing is, when you ask a powerful question, the answer will come. It can be today, it can be tomorrow, but the answer will come.
Exactly. Exactly. So good. Oh my gosh. Can you share a little bit of where people can connect with you, follow you, if you have anything that's going on in your world, if you want to share your podcast, all the beautiful things?
Yes, of course. So you can find me on Instagram. It is movement medicine underscore. Um, I think, well, that's the best way to find me because my website and everything is also linked through there. So if you find my Instagram, you will find the rest. And I actually just launched my new signature program. Maybe you can guess the name. I'm not sure, but it's called Reclaim Your Power,
Yes.
obviously. So this is something that I'm like fully immersed in now, and it's evergreen. So you can join whenever you want to join when you are ready to fully reclaim your powers. I would say that would be the best way to work with me with.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so grateful that like our paths crossed and we were able to be in this conversation. And I always don't take that lightly. And I'm always just so grateful because, there's I think I say this too much, but it is what it is. There's just like the choices that we make, right? Like the choices that we make bring us to a certain moment. And I just don't take lightly of what it takes for two people to be in conversation, especially just, strangers, but even the people that are in our lives, right? Like it's just such a beautiful like miracle in a way. And that's, I just appreciate it. And I'm so grateful for you and your vulnerability and your authenticity in this moment and just sharing your experience and your wisdom. And just so grateful. So thank you.
Honestly, I really want to thank you as well because it has been a blast. It went by so fast as well. And I think like we had so many like beautiful moments and things were talked about. And I think I would say keep going because you're actually really, really good in what you do. Like honestly, thank you so much for having me.
You're so, so welcome. And to those that have tuned in, I trust and know that this episode was everything that was meant and that you needed to hear, and just trust yourself, trust your internal guidance system, your wisdom that you innately have.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media, and we'll see you in the next episode.